The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
All right, we are working without Annette here, but now we are finally connected. As I said, I had a very good friend, a very prominent public person, a brilliant guy. He was actually being treated for double-hit B-cell lymphoma, a type of cancer. And he believed that a drug that was developed by our guest, Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, we're just going to call him Dr. Patrick, saved his life. Now, Dr. Patrick served as a transplant surgeon and faculty member at UCLA, where he performed the first whole pancreas transplant at UCLA. But he is both a physician, a surgeon, also a great entrepreneur. He founded, led two major pharmaceutical companies, American Pharmaceutical Partners and Abraxas Bioscience, which were sold for a combined $9.1 billion. He is owner of two important media properties, the Los Angeles Times and the San Diego Union Tribune, Herb Klein's old paper, which is because of his support for independent journalism. He's also a minority owner of the Los Angeles Lakers. I've looked at some pictures of him online. Looks like a swashbuckling guy. And he developed the drug Abraxane that my friend is absolutely convinced saved his life. So, Dr. Patrick, welcome to the Roger Stone Show. I'm going to let you lay this out for us.
Well, thank you so much, Roger. I appreciate the opportunity. Look, I think, if you don't mind, I would like to sort of give the story of what exciting opportunities wait our nation, in fact, the world. And I want to talk about really what my mission has been for my life. And I'm now at the brinks of this exciting time that we've now, I think, found what we call the Holy Grail, a molecule called IL-15, or interleukin 15, which we've now developed, is approved, and it's ready to deploy. So I honestly believe that we have an opportunity for America to lead in this effort, and the President should help us lead in this effort. So if I may, if I could just take you back a little, back in time in history. In 2007, way back, almost 20 years ago now, the scientific world convened to rank which molecules could potentially cure cancer. And for that event, the National Cancer Institute, the NIH, together with the world's top scientific leadership gathered. And what they wanted to do is find out which molecule in the world that is known could cure cancer. Well, they ranked number one a molecule called IL-15. Number one, it was what they call a T-cell growth factor. And this is the molecule that we've now developed. They ranked number two, the checkpoint inhibitor, and this we all know as Keytruda or Nivo, which you see on TV, which is basically takes the brakes of T-cells. So what is the irony? Well, the irony is that the world, including our country, and big pharma like Merck and Bristol Myers and Pfizer, and the FDA, spent the last decade developing the number two agent, that's Keytruda. And the number one agent was left on the shelf because nobody could develop it or find a way to develop it. Well, here we are in 2024. Not only had we developed it, it was approved finally by the FDA, and that was the milestone. We were approved for bladder cancer, and which were able to save the patient's bladder. Otherwise, the bladder would have to be removed. So this molecule, this missing link, was found, developed, never in the history of medicine available, to stimulate your own immune system, your natural killer cells that God had given us, and has evolved over 450 million years in our body. And by a simple subcutaneous injection of this IL-15, this Holy Grail, your natural killer cells and your T cells grow, and that is called lymphocytes. So what is the problem? Where are we now? Well, there are two issues, and there are two crises facing us. One crisis is what I call turbo cancers. We are seeing a rise in cancer, and I am fearful that we are going to have a pandemic of cancer, especially in young children. And crisis number two, we're also seeing that as we age, the cause of early death, and I'll cite you a paper that's just published in JAMA, that in the United States general population, if your NK cells and T cells are low, meaning lymphopenia, the word lymphopenia, you have a significant increase, 30 to 80% increase of dying earlier. So your longevity and aging is affected. So these are two independent crises that we can now, for the first time in history, address and solve. So let me talk about crisis number one. So crisis number one is cancer. So what is the problem? Well, we've been spending years and years, and Merck's revenue right now is $20 billion a year on these molecules, which was ranked number 2, called checkpoint inhibitors, Keytruda, and they fail. The problem, when they fail because your T cells no longer are available, and these drugs are supposed to take the brakes of T cells. But if there are no T cells, there are no brakes to take off, and the only way to fix that is to grow more T cells in your body, and that is the number one molecule that was ranked in 2007 called Anktiva, which grows these T cells and natural killer cells in your body. These are the cells that God gave you. The IL-15 is what God gave us in our body to actually stimulate, and is the missing link to grow these. So that's the need. So what is the problem now then for cancer patients? Well, the FDA approved Keytruda with now for over 40 approvals in all types of cancers with what we call single-arm trials, meaning you do a test in breast cancer, you do another test in lung cancer, etc. And the FDA approved them. And with regard to Anktiva, we have such single-arm trials approved. But the FDA has only approved it for bladder cancer. We now have over 13,000 Americans begging for the use of this drug. I'm not allowed to give it to them unless they have this subset of bladder cancer. There is a asynchronous mechanism of approval. If you're a large pharma for the last 20 years, like a Merck, for Keytruda, the number 2 ranked drug, it was approved for single-arm trials. For Anktiva, the number 1 ranked drug, they are suggesting I do randomized trials in every tumor type, which will take 5 lifetimes, and I'm willing to do them as confirmatory trials, but in the meantime, Americans are dying.
This sounds to me like a perfect... it sounds to me like...
Saudi Arabia. Sorry, Roger. Go ahead.
Pardon me. Yeah, you're stuck in a bureaucratic maze. The FDA, sadly, even this administration, is sadly constipated. Take too long to do anything. The others in government have been depending on them for regulations regarding vapes, which are widely used legally in the United States. They haven't produced that. I know of other life-saving drugs that they seem to be running the clock out on. This appears to me to be such an example. Here you have in Anktiva a drug that has proven to save lives. Speak to that if you would.
Well, we now have patients with metastatic pancreatic cancer who is living for 7 years. We have patients with bladder cancer free of disease for over 10 years. We have patients with failed brain tumors, glioblastoma, failed first-line therapy, now almost in complete response. We, as you said, your friend with failed CAR T-cell therapy, failed all therapy, and our Anktiva has reduced his tumor down to almost negligible. What's happened is that Saudi Arabia, with the average age of 37 years, saw the light, and they've moved ahead. They are first to now approve Anktiva for lung cancer. And now I'm here in Riyadh because they want to now explore exactly what we're talking about, that this should be treated for any patient who's failed standard of care. And so the ask is for the president to really use his authority to overcome these bureaucratic hurdles that you suggest. Americans should not wait for these redundant trials when the molecule is released safety approved. And really we can't let Americans die, which then leads me to the second crisis. The second crisis is really a silent crisis called lymphopenia, in which 1 in 5 Americans, that means 52 Americans today, suffer from a low lymphocyte count. And what does that mean? Well, this paper from JAMA did this analysis. 31,000 patients are analyzed, and they found that if you had lymphopenia, which is 1 in 5 Americans, greater than type 2 diabetes, you die earlier, you live longer. You have a high risk of infection, and you die from all causes, including cardiac disease. Yet, we have now shown, including the FDA's package insert, that Anktiva reverses this lymphopenia. So, what is the economic impact of that? There's another study that just shown that if we increase the longevity of an Americans by just 1 year, increasing longevity, the economic input to the country is $37 trillion, and I mean trillion. That's a study done by Harvard and the London Business School that showed if you increase longevity by just 1 year, if you do this for 10 years, it's $370 trillion, which is of a major economic impact. So we have this American innovation for the world, invented in America, developed by Americans, produced in America, but now being led by the Middle East. And a call really is for the president to take on his leadership and to extend the life of Americans' human health span and take on this missing link that was ranked number 1 in 2007 by the NCI, NIH, FDA itself, and now is in limbo.
Well, I would think, first of all, the recognition and the approval of this medicine by the Saudis will enhance the chances that President Trump might recognize that lives could be saved. He's done this before when he championed the Right to Try Act, as you know. I think it's a question of getting his attention. But look, I'm generally speaking a critic of Big Pharma. I found that fenbendazole and ivermectin did indeed have cancer-fighting properties. Fenbendazole, originally a veterinary drug, has now been redeveloped for human use as menbendazole. My own research led me to it. It's an off-label use today. I'm not sure, sadly, that there are elements inside our government who are interested in approving drugs which actually cure cancer, because cancer, candidly, is big money, enormous money. I recall when my wife's oncologist recommended for her both chemotherapy and radiation, not cognizant of the fact that she was taking progesterone to treat arthritis, and therefore the radiation was contraindicated, leading me to believe that the doctor never looked at her chart before giving her the cookie-cutter solution. You, sir, are a pioneer, and I appreciate you joining us today on The Roger Stone Show.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me speak to your audience about the great need for our nation.
Many thanks.
Thanks for listening to The Roger Stone Show. You can hear The Roger Stone Show Sunday afternoons at 3. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?